So I wanted to spend a few minutes talking to you guys about raw food diets. Now, pretty much this seems to be the fat answer to give online when people ask, well, what's the best thing I can feed for my dog? You know, invariably you'll get somebody answering, oh, you need to feed a raw food diet, you know, or a prey model diet, or basically something with raw meat. And the argument they give is, you know, dogs are carnivores, they're not meant to be brought up on this kind of food, etc., etc. And it's all the problems of the world are lumped onto the fact that we feed dogs kibble for the most part. Now, yeah, there are problems which some dogs have which are diet related. That's not in question, never has been in question. The question really is raw food the way to go? Now, in the 10 minutes which YouTube gives me for this video, there's no way I can go into enough detail to really cover the whole field. I might do another video later, but there's a few things I wanted to just touch on fairly quickly. One of the big problems with raw food diets is the nutrient balance in them. There are some things which we know about food, about dog food, that says these are the requirements for a food. Now, those requirements may not be complete. There may be things in that a dog requires that we haven't yet figured out that a dog requires. That's certainly a possibility. But there are things that we know that are absolutely required and of a food. Now, pretty much any kibble diet that you get in the store, that, you know, cheapest to the most expensive, is going to meet those minimal requirements. It's not to say that the cheapest is the most ideal, but they're going to meet the minimal requirements. A lot of the time, and in fact I've never seen a raw food diet which has gone through a commercial analysis. In any of the research studies that I've seen where they've looked at the nutritional adequacy of raw food diets, they come up very, very lacking. Specifically, one area is the calcium-phosphorus ratio. Now, that is something that we know a lot about. We know the physiology of, we know why it's required and what the results in the body are from this. And frankly, most raw food diets fail that test. So am I comfortable feeding a diet which is known to not be balanced? No, I'm not. Now, that's not to say that you can't have a raw food diet that is balanced. That is perfectly possible. Question is, do you know that the diet that you're feeding your dog is balanced if you're feeding raw food? Well, you should. If you're feeding raw food and you don't know that it's balanced, I'd be pretty concerned if I were your vet. I'd be concerned if it was my dog too, but I'm more likely to be in the first situation than the second. The second comment is on the whole raw aspect. I mean, people say it's, you feed raw because that's what dogs would be eating in the wild, blah, blah, blah. Well, I have a real problem with that. We know there are bad things in raw meat, and we know that those things are destroyed by cooking, So, you get the argument that, a dog's intestinal tract is specially adapted to deal with this stuff. Well, baloney. I'm sorry. Show me the evidence. I've not seen the evidence. I've seen people tell it to me all the time, but no one's ever shown me any real evidence that that's the case. Instead, what there's information out there which says, dogs do get colonized with a lot of these pathogens that we don't necessarily, that people say that they don't get affected by it. Salmonella. Salmonella does colonize the dog's intestinal tract, and they do shed it in their feces. Now, that being said, I believe the numbers are 80% of dogs that are colonized with salmonella will be asymptomatic carriers. Okay, that means that 20% or 1 out of 5 who get colonized with it are not asymptomatic carriers, so keep that in mind. The foods that these raw foods that we're feeding are, the dogs are known to contain pathogens. So you're feeding your dog a known pathogen, and you're hoping that it's not going to cause a problem. Well, that's, I have a problem with that. And I think if you really sit down and think about it, you might have a problem with it too. Because a certain percentage of dogs will have a serious problem to it. It's not to say you can't have a healthy dog on a raw diet, but, I don't know, it worries me. It worries me, I have to be honest. Now, the next issue is, okay, so you're feeding your dog raw meat. Okay. So, and we know that a large percentage of dogs that get fed this raw meat, which does contain these bacteria, and there's studies to show, the chickens that you buy in the grocery store or whatever, that they do contain known pathogenic bacteria. And some pretty nasty ones at that too. So you're feeding these to your dogs, and they're coming out in the poop, and it's spreading around the bowls, and it's and it's getting all over the place. That's a problem. I mean, I've worked in clinics where they've shown that, well, I haven't shown, it's one of their technicians actually was feeding a raw food diet, and they were pregnant, and they came very close to losing their pregnancy, and it was blamed on the raw food diet that she was feeding her dogs, because she's, you're feeding a known pathogen, and it's getting around in the environment. It's just not a good idea to be doing this. Beyond that, there's other studies which have shown fairly conclusively that there are some significant public health hazards to doing this. There was one particular study that I was looking at where they took a diet containing salmonella. They analyzed the antibiotic resistance profile of the salmonella going in, and they analyzed it coming out. Now, surprisingly, the antibiotic resistance profile coming out was not the same as what went in. In particular, the stuff coming out had more antibiotic resistance genes than what went in. So we're taking bacteria, which in a lot of cases they had acquired so many resistance genes going through that they'd now be qualified as superbugs. So we're spreading these bacteria around that are fairly dangerous. Most people, I'll be honest, most people, you could probably lick a culture of salmonella and you might not get sick. You spread it around your yard, you might not get sick, but you're playing with fire. And it worries me. So yeah, I'm against raw food diets. I have spoken to, I don't know how many vets, a lot of veterinarians. I've spoken to nutritional experts on the subject. I've spoken to a lot of people, and I've yet actually to run into somebody whose opinion I respect that is for raw food. Now, that may change. I have to be honest. I don't know everything, and I'm open to any evidence which people care to present to me, and feel free to comment on this. But the evidence would have to be pretty strong to come up against the what I know from research. So I hope if you're considering raw food that you've maybe take a second to think again. If you feed raw food right now, please give it some thought. At least I'd be a lot more happy if people would at least cook it. You can feed a home prepared diet, by all means, but do yourself a favor and cook it first. Thanks.